Okay, let's run.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it.
It's a quest. It's a quest for fun.
Well, The Rock says, why don't we just cut right to the chase?
Okay, now he wants to get together. Well, he wants to talk.
I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
It's showtime, folks!
What are you?
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to And I Quote, the weekly show where we introduce you to content creators of all shapes and sizes that join us from many and all corners of the nerd universe. We find out more about them by taking your questions. I am your host, Ryan of Nerd Culture, and our guest on this episode is someone we have been looking forward to meeting for a very, very long time. He does incredible artwork. Please welcome indie artist Will Pleydon. Hello, Will. How are you?
Hello, I'm Will. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we are thankful that you are here. Now, if you have any questions for Will Pleydon as we go throughout the course of this episode, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. Our producers are going to be monitoring it as we go throughout the course of the show. And don't forget to like and share this with everyone you know. First thing is first here, Will. When did you start reading comics?
I would say, it was pretty early reading. The first comics I had was Judge Dredd and The Incredible Hulk. I think my dad was feeding to me. He was a big comic reader when he was younger. But I would probably say around about 1981. Yeah, when I was about maybe 6 or 7, yeah. Yeah, around about then.
All right. What would you say are some of your favorite comic book writers or artists, past or present?
Well, I think my go-to is always, I guess, the classics in the 80s. I love the John Buscema's. I love the Frank Frazettas. In that era of creators, they were always my go-to. And in the 90s, I just anything Silvestri I would eat up. Liefeld. In that explosion of the 90s, when they were doing New Mutants and X-Force and Wolverine and I loved all of that stuff. Couldn't get enough of it. But even now, I suppose as I'm getting older, I tend to always look back to the lessons of the Kurt Swans and who did Superman, and I look at the John Buscema's with his Savage Conan. The lessons are always there. And you just unravel new layers and you go back and look at these things more and more. Just even how to compose a dramatic scene or to use the anatomy to twist a figure around. But all of those characters, all those artists, the way they sort of move through those characters, just offered a different perspective on art for me. It was always a different lesson. I suppose now, I guess, like moving through then, I guess, when you spin out of comics and you spin into comics, depending on what your journey's like. For me, my entry back in was the Bill Sienkiewicz's and the Alex Rosses and people like that were taking it to more of a fine art level, so that they could do both, So that was kind of for me when I was in art school, that was kind of my drawback in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what would you say were some of your favorite comic book-based movies or TV series, past or present?
Oh, wow. Well, I guess, growing up, there wasn't a great deal. You had the Incredible Hulk and things like that on telly when I was a kid, but so some of the ones that you drive to now, they've got everything now. There was always Superman and there was always Batman. I think they were probably my go-to because Superman's my favorite of all characters. I'm like Kenny Calderon in that way. We both love the Man of Steel. But it was probably those ones. There was always, like your outsider ones like Blade and a few others that were popping out. But if ever I was sitting down and drawing, it would always have the original Christopher Reeve going. And growing up, I used to watch the Adventures of Superman with George Reeves with my dad. That was our kind of time together. Early in the morning, it'd be on telly, with Phyllis Coates, and then we had, some of the, and George Reeves obviously in season 1, and Noel Neal she took on season 2. So I mean that original Technicolor, when it became Technicolor, that Adventures of Superman was one of my favorites, and I'll often sit and draw with that playing in the background. It's part of my little playlist that I have going. And then obviously with Christopher Reeve taking the helm and doing it from there. So yeah, that would probably be my go-tos if I was talking about any TV shows that marry to movies. It would be those ones.
Good choices there. And you mentioned Man of Steel. I think that's my favorite Superman movie. And it's actually a criminally underrated comic book movie, I would say. And Henry Cavill, you should have gotten your own trilogy, but unfortunately you got the shortest end of the stick.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
He did what he could with what he was given, but it was not easy.
Right. And he made a good Superman. I kind of feel like there was a few little trips that Snyder made a couple of times when maybe he didn't embody to me. And I hear all the arguments about, you got to wait for the whole trilogy and stuff. But when I went and saw Superman, Man of Steel for the first time, I kind of felt like I wanted more hope from him. I mean, that was, to me, Superman is the best of us. It's what humanity strives for, and I felt like they were almost doing a faux Batman Superman kind of thing. But yeah, it's a great movie. It's still on my playlist. And I watched Justice League a fair bit. There's the Snyder cut. So that's always, because it's nice and long. I can usually get a drawing done within that time frame, so that's good.
Well, it's a 4-hour cut, man.
Yeah.
So you can get a lot done in 4 hours.
Oh my You'd be surprised how time goes, though. It goes pretty quick.
Half that movie is slow-mo, Zach. It's slow-mo. It's too much, dude. It's too much. Listen, is that cut better than what we got in 2017 with the Joss Whedon cut? Yes. But at the same time, Zach, lay off the slow-mo. You're drinking too much. You're showing us little. Half that movie to me was slow-mo, and to me, I felt like I was going to get bored. And I don't want to be bored watching a Justice League movie because it's your cut, it's your baby, and I get that. But man, cut it out with the slow motion sequences, bro. Like it worked at BVS because the death of Bruce's parents, like that opening montage, that was fantastic.
Yeah,
I loved what he did with that. With what's his face, Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Lauren Cohan, whatever her name.
Yep,
that was phenomenal, and the score, so good in BVS. The director's cut, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Zach, cut it out with the slow-mo. Anyway, that's enough about that. I could go on all day. Enough of the soapbox, guys. But yeah, Man of Steel is a great film. Good call on that. Alex Ross, funny you should mention that because one of the first, if not the first graphic novel I read when I started reading comics some years ago. As a matter of fact, on Batman Day, which is where we're doing this episode on, coincidentally enough, Hayden is here, and it's Batman Day. And I'm wearing my Batman shirt. So
perfect.
The first graphic novel I read was Kingdom Come. And Mark Alex Ross, hashtag like a bout, is fantastic. If you've never read that graphic novel, treat yourself. Because it is fantastic. I actually ended up meeting Mark, and he was a very kind gentleman. So thank you, Mark. He signed my paperback and a few other titles as well. So well done, Mark Waid.
Yeah, it's a beautiful book. I mean, and so does Marvel's. I mean, they sort of go hand in hand for me.
I read that too.
At that time. Yeah, they're beautifully done. I mean, you can see that the time it took to paint each panel. I mean, it's a labor of love for him. You can just tell, and you just can't go wrong with the depth of thought around each of the characters. Honoring where they came from, but also, you almost see that final crisis, or that crisis. Version of Superman with the gray, it just gets me every time. I love it,
Absolutely. Good titles. Man, we just gave everyone here a great reading list.
There we go.
Some things to check out. And yes, I do have Marvel's The Graphic Novel in my collection, so don't worry. I have it. I love it. Great story.
Yeah.
To see something from the point of view of everyday citizens, how they see the superheroes, that's amazing.
Yeah, it is great. I mean, it's, like the Spider-Man climbing up the glass window and, that the perspective of Phil Sheldon, I think that was the character's name, the photographer, the journalist, just seeing him age through time and his journey from the hope and the wonder and the wow to the almost disdain towards the end of his time. But what a great storyline. I mean, don't we all aspire to have stories and artwork that kind of marry like that in our books? You know, that's it, yeah. What a great alignment the two of them had.
And what else is great is this episode of And I Quote with our guest, Will Pleydon. Don't forget to like and share this with everyone you know. If you have any questions for Will, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. Be more than happy to hear from you. Whether you are joining this live or on the replay, thank you for being here. We greatly appreciate that. When did you decide to become an indie artist?
Well, it's an interesting title because I just consider myself an illustrator and a painter. So I think I just moved through that time. I mean, for me, it's just something I always did, and you just move where you feel inspired to go, and often when you're doing things you love, magnetically you find your audience. You know, so for me, I was just always at the drawing board trying to get to the next level, trying to how do I perfect that? How do I, which is exactly how it is still. I mean, that journey doesn't end. But I think you just you find your tribe as you move through that. You know, like you know, whether you're doing a book that someone really wants you to do, or a cover, or you're just doing commission-based things. And I think that season just changes with you. You know, like I come from the world of portraiture and realism and oil painting and all those kind of things. That was my background, and so for a long time, you know, people wanted things that were like in the 90s. They wanted retro paintings, and they wanted the Wild West, and they wanted Native Americans, and then it transitioned to wildlife, and then people wanted landscapes. So, you know, and throughout that, I'm still trying to get, you know, as close as I can to some of the masters of comics at the same time, trying to get the best version of Superman, or the most, you know, most powerful version of Conan, or whatever it might be, you know, that I want to do at the same time. I think we're hitting a real nice patch now where we're seeing so much groundswell of and exposure to incredible artists that have an avenue to show their work, like on platforms like this, where they can have their own YouTube, where they can have their own whatnot. I mean, we're seeing direct to consumer avenues popping up everywhere, which has opened up so much in terms of the opportunities for artists. And I think that's where, you know, like the term of the indie artist is, you know, is relevant and important. So I welcome it for sure. But I think for me, it's always just been, I just do what I do, you know, whatever label you put to it. It's whatever season I move through to try and get the best quality I can.
Well, that sounds like a good idea. And Charles W. Morgan is here. He says, "What's up,
Hey.
Ryan and Will? What's up, Charles?
Hey, Charles.
Good to see you, man. He's going to be on the show here, I believe, in a few weeks. So
Yeah.
get ready, guys. Fasten thy seatbelts. Charles W. Morgan and that cold cutter, yeah. That Wild West. And I like Westerns, by the way. I don't mind Westerns.
Yes.
I don't. I mean, look at the spaghetti Westerns of the olden times. You know,
Right.
Clint Eastwood. You know, just
Yeah, it's great.
Man with no name. One of these days, I hope to cosplay as that character at a convention. Who knows?
Yeah.
You know, I had the beard for it, right? I mean, all I gotta do is get the hat
Yeah.
and the rest of the outfit, respectively. And I do know places where you can
black
get.
hat,
Yeah, I can get the cat. I know a place where I can get the hat made. I know a place where you can
poncho.
get poncho. Yes, poncho, the belt, and of course, I think he was wearing jeans or denim jeans, something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah, he had something. It was like it might have been like a rawhide kind of.
Was it jeans or something?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Cowboy
Interesting.
boots. I don't know if I can wear the boots though. Wearing cowboy boots at a 6-hour convention—that's a little too much, man.
It's a bit heavy on the calves.
Yeah, I might just have to wear comfortable shoes, you know, for the outfit.
You'll have to practice the squint. You have to practice the Clint squint.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, it's true. That's true. I got to get in some practice. And Charles W. Morgan says, "Thanks, guys. You're welcome, Charles. It's good to see you. If you have any questions for Will, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. Be more than happy to hear from you, as well as anyone else who may be watching or listening to this right now. With that being said, what are the rewards about being an artist?"
Well, that's an interesting question. I think for me, personally, it's something I can't do. I can't not do. I mean, it's something that I intrinsically are drawn to do it all the time. For me, I suppose there's always the satisfaction of someone that's happy with their work. I mean, that's you know, really what drives me extrinsically, you know, and intrinsically. Like their happiness and their contentment with the product. That's a great external reward, and certainly it's a good, nice little buff to your ego and feeling like you're on the right pathway. But for me, my own satisfaction and the reward to me is having a certain quality that I have overcome. So each work that I do is fraught with mistakes because I'm trying to push new areas and new frontiers all the time with it. So there's always going to be things that I feel I've won. I mean, for me, art is not a relaxing thing. I'm at war when I sit down. I mean, I'm constantly, there's a million questions running through my head. Am I pushing, pulling, shaping, forming, using the light correctly? And, you know, and coming from a background where I was very heavily photo referenced, because that's what portraiture is. I mean, you're dealing with the representation of an image. For me, my minor little goals is to try and push myself to the point where I can completely let go of those reins. And sometimes I can, sometimes I have to go back and reference something again, but it's just building that bank of knowledge that I can lean on when I'm drawing, and it makes my process quicker because it's generating from me, and it's not generating from an image that I can have to source or take a photo of, or look for something. So it's that for me, if I can overcome that a little bit, then I feel like I'm moving up that mountain slowly in terms of what I can get towards and building those muscles as I go, you know. So for me, those are my rewards, you know. Like if I can learn a medium and feel reasonably competent in it, that's a big tick. That's a win. If I can draw or paint a picture where I get a level of quality that I can look at for more than a week, that's a big tick, you know. Ask my wife, there's not much hanging in our house because I just can't stand to see it for more than a period of time. And I think that's just the nature of what we do as artists. We're constantly shifting, evolving, and moving. So when we look back, we go, oh, I can see a million things wrong with it. I can't even stand to have it hanging in my house anymore. But that's just because we're constantly changing and trying to improve our game, you know. So, yep. So number one would be, if there is a satisfaction level or a contentment or joy that people get out of my work, that's a massive, massive achievement for me. That's a big tick in my box. And the second thing is, if I feel like I can conquer something in terms of my repertoire of things that I can improve upon or be better at, then that's a second win for me.
Everybody's winning today, especially Will. I got to tell you, great stuff. And thank you for sharing that with us. On the other side of the fence, though, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges about being an artist?
I think it's your ability to reconcile with the fact that often it's just you at the table, and it's keeping yourself focused on your purpose, you know. And I think sometimes we get into that rut of, does anyone even care about what I'm doing here besides me? Like, does anyone ever going to see it? I put it on social media and one person liked it, you know. Like, it's, you know, the challenges are now, like, the benefits and the challenges are the same. You've got so much opportunity to get your work out there, but at the same time, everyone is. So you can sometimes be lost in that big, large ocean of people producing. So the challenge is reconciling with that ego voice in the back of your head that's telling you, you know what, this isn't, you know, just give it up, go mow the lawn or something. But then you have to just keep speaking to yourself, and, you know, this is what I do, this is what I am. And if this isn't good enough, then it has to be, it will be. And I just have to keep coming back to it. You know, like, I mean, there was a lot of people when I went to school that were way better at art than I was at that time at our level, that just stopped. You know, they just stopped doing art. And you often wonder, well, why? I wonder why, because they were good. But for me, I just, you know, I just didn't. I just kept coming back in and kept coming back in, and, you know, and doing, you know, I was, very few of us had come out fully formed unless we've got a photographic memory with art, like the amazing Frank Frazetta, you know, who, you know, could just draw on that knowledge when he'd see things. But most of us just have to work at it, and I just never gave up on that. I said, keep going, and it just became who I was. So my greatest challenges, I suppose, are just maintaining focused on the quality and pushing forward to never stop expanding. So, what's next? How can I perfect that? Let's just shift mediums. Let's try and do a bit of sculpting. Let's try a little bit of ink work. Let's try a little bit of airbrushing. So it's you're just constantly moving that way. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And I think it's also fair to say that Will Pleydon has the eye of the tiger. So with that being said, this is an incredible episode of And I Quote with our special guest, Will Pleydon. If you're just joining us, don't forget to like and share this with everyone you know. If you have any questions for Will, whether you are joining us live or on the replay, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. Be more than happy to hear from you. Thank you to those of you who have commented thus far. I do have some examples here I'd like to share with you. For those of you listening, I'm going to be bringing up a few images here. So the first one I want to bring up, some of these are just, I don't know, maybe not so well known. Maybe they are well known characters. I don't know. I mean, they've only been around for like 60, 70 flipping years. But my question is, what is it? How long does it take to put pieces like these together? What's your process like?
The hardest part for any of these artworks, even the ones I'm putting together now for the new Masters of the Universe series I'm doing, it's more the pre-thinking. It's getting the pose right, getting the expression right, the lighting, and when you work all that out, I thumbnail a lot of my stuff out and sketch it all down. When I've worked that out and I lightly draw it in, for me that's the hard part done. Then it's really just painting. I'm kind of just getting the colors right and the tone right, the textures right, things like that. So it varies. I mean, it just depends and varies. I mean, if you've got a character with a lot of armor on them or feathers or whatever it might be, it's going to take a lot longer than if you've got a character like Panthro, where it's just some spikes and sort of fur-like skin. So, or Venom, where it's just a smooth costume. So if I'm doing something like Thor's wings on his helmet, it's going to take a lot longer than if I'm doing an Orko. So it varies in time. I mean, I could sit there and paint a picture for four evenings after work, and then I might get it done. It could take me 2. So it just varies greatly, and sometimes it depends on how the paint reacts too, because different pigments and different paints have a different finish, and sometimes you've got to work on that a little bit more and build your layers a lot differently. So so I mean, when you buy one of those portraits, I mean, you're buying not just the finish, but you're buying all the thought process that goes with it and the research that goes into it. So it's not just a type it into the Googles and you pop up with an image. It's really something that is developed out of what I've read, my mind, my research, and my thoughts behind what makes the character work.
Those are truly great pieces of work. And here's another one. What else? What other skills do you have, Parker? I was thinking of something in photography. Look how amazing this is. Now, it's one thing to have the head of the character, the bust of the character, but to have the full body of the character, I mean, my gosh. Spider-Man, what was it like putting this piece together?
I love. I used to love the beginning of the old '90s cartoons, or the Marvel cartoons, when you'd see the Spider-Man drop down on the logo. Do you remember that? He dropped down and crouched.
Oh yeah,
really
baby.
low.
I grew up in the '90s. Well, you're talking to a '90s kid here. I loved Fox Kids back in the day, brother. I was there. Your uncle went to Woodstock, man. I was there. I was sitting at home waiting for these cartoons to start when I got off the bus after school.
Yeah. So that was my inspiration. I wanted that Spider-Man crawling down the wall, towards you, that perspective. So I just wanted him crouched, and I wanted to be able to fit the body in that way. I mean, I could have done him hanging upside down on the web, but I just really wanted that wall crawler, So I tried to get that pose, tried to get the movement almost.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who remembers the greatness that was the 1994 animated series on Fox Kids.
Yeah.
I mean,
Followed the comics. They followed the comics, which was even better.
which is
You know?
that. By the way, that was my introduction to Spider-Man. A lot of the characters that were featured on Fox Kids back in the '90s, which is, by the way, the greatest decade of them all. Anyone else who says otherwise is fooling themselves. Just kidding, just kidding. People grew up watching Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends back in the '80s. That's okay. There's no problem with that.
Yeah, it's a good
You know
one.
what I mean?
You had the X-Men. You had
Dude,
the
that was my
Batman animated
introduction.
series.
All those animated cartoons back in the '90s were my introductions to characters like Spider-Man, the X-Men, Batman. All those shows were the cream that rises to the top. Yeah, the cream of the crop. And by the way, Charles W. Morgan says that shadow really makes it pop.
Yeah, thanks, Charles. Yeah.
That's. I believe he's referring to the Spider-Man piece. I believe he was
Yes.
that, or maybe it was something before. But anyway, he also goes on to say, "I did in the '80s." Charles says, so you were there in the '80s. That was your jam, Charles. Was Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends when they introduced Iceman and Firestar? Do you remember that?
Yep.
Anybody remember that?
I do. I was there too.
Yeah. Well, he was there. I wasn't, but
Yeah.
other people outside of my generation were, and Charles W. Morgan says, right, he was there. Yes. Okay, Charles. Awesome. We have something to discuss a little bit more so in depth, maybe, perhaps, in the next few weeks when you show up here on the show. Maybe we can talk about
Charles and I
Spider-Man.
were the same vintage. I think we're the same vintage.
Oh, really? Is that the deal? Okay, that's fine, too.
Probably, yeah.
I like Spider-Man. I mean, I grew up watching him in the '90s. I saw the movies when Sam Raimi was making them. Two of them were good. The third one, not so much. But that wasn't his fault. That was studio interference and too many cooks in the kitchen. That wasn't entirely Sam Raimi's fault. Sam, don't worry about it. You're forgiven. You gave us 2 out of 3. That's not bad.
Yeah. And he gave us Evil Dead, so that makes up for a lot.
Yeah, but back then that was his boomstick. But anyway, I digress. Let's see here. I'm trying to think. What was the other thing I wanted to share with you? Oh, I think was it this one? Yeah. Is this Wolfman?
It is, yes, the original Wolfman. So
what was this?
The 1940s Lon Chaney Jr. Wolfman from Universal. So yeah, that took a little bit of time, but I wanted to do a full scene, with I don't know if you can see it from that image, but you can see the townspeople with their torches in the distance in the dark there, moving up after him through the hills. But yeah, just a challenge of trying to do a complete night scene and tinting all the paint to have that kind of night sort of palette with the moonlight. Yeah, it's fun.
Well, full disclosure, I have the 8-disc Blu-ray set that contains the first 8 Universal monster films, which includes, Dracula, the Wolfman, Phantom of the Opera with Claude Rains, The Invisible Man. You had, you had Bride of Frankenstein. You had Frankenstein, which came before Bride of Frankenstein.
Yes.
And then you also had Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yep.
That to me is my favorite, is Creature from the Black Lagoon. I think of the original 8 that I have in this respective box set, to me, my favorite is Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Why is that? Why do you like that one?
Well, because it's just because I've been, in a way, us who have grown up with certain properties or have watched TV series, we've been inundated with vampires, werewolves. We've been hearing those stories for years. But Creature is one of those films that just stands apart from the others, and I think that's what makes it so special. Also, I had the pleasure of meeting the gentleman who was in the suit during the underwater sequences. Rico Browning. Rico Browning, the Gill Man. I had the pleasure of meeting him years ago at a convention, and they actually did a showing after his Q&A that night of Creature from the Black Lagoon, and that was my first time seeing that movie. In a darkened room, lights out, watching it, black and white, and I loved it. And I thought, man, this is a movie that was made in the early 50s, and this is one of the best movies I've ever seen in my life. They don't do this anymore.
No, and there's a certain charm about those films. One of my favorites is The Invisible Man, and just seeing Claude Rains in that, just the effects. I was like, I still can't quite get my head around how they do that with their technology back then. It's just incredible.
That was I believe Invisible Man was late 30s, early 40s, 1940, 1941.
Yeah, I thought it was in the 30s, maybe. I don't know. But I mean, some of the actors you see transition through Frankenstein too. I can't think of her name now, but the woman that shrieks all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember her name
Right.
either. I apologize. But I will say that my favorites in the series were Creature from the Black Lagoon, The Family of the Opera, because honest to God, Claude Rains is a boss. He is a boss of an actor. I mean, he
Yes.
was the Invisible Man, and then he plays the Wolfman's daddy or uncle, really.
Yes.
Like, he's in
Yeah.
the Lon Chaney Jr. film, The Wolfman, which, by the way, I think The
Yeah.
Wolfman is one of the all-time greats. And your piece that we just showed a moment ago, that's great. I think that piece of art is fantastic.
Thank you.
There's no
I
question.
mean, and just you see him have such a range from that to the movie, Notorious and Casablanca. I mean, it's incredible. He's just a great actor. They don't make him like that anymore.
They don't. And one of those actors, Claude Rains, I would say is #LackBoss. I'm sorry, I can't help it. Once again, we are here with the incredible artist known as Will Pleydon on this episode of And I Quote. Don't forget to like and share this with everyone you know. If you have any questions for Will, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. I'm more than happy to hear from you as we go throughout the course of this broadcast. Have there been any special memories for you from being at conventions or other events, whether you were there as a vendor or there as an attendee?
I mean, I love conventions. I love doing it as both as fan and running a vendor as well. I mean, there's something special about running your own stand when you're handing over work to people. I mean, it's a great time when you can it's just obviously the satisfaction of selling product, but when you get to see people flip through the book or they grab an artwork, you immediately see their expressions, and hearing feedback too. Like people will say, "Oh, look, I like that, but I want that in more color," or "Have you ever done this character?" I think you sort of moves you into different directions. You're always learning, and I love being able to get around and walk around and see what other creators are doing. I love seeing how they set their shops up or just what artwork they're moving through. But as a fan, I mean, I was lucky enough to get to a couple of New York Comic Cons and a San Diego Comic Con, and just seeing some of the legends. Well, like I saw Neil Adams doing there, and Al Plastino, and Bill Sienkiewicz. I mean, you get to see these people, and sometimes if you're lucky enough to meet them, Grant Morrison's. Like it's from me in Australia. I mean, we're so far away. When you see these people in person, you think, oh well. There they are. There's the creator, the one I've seen photos of and film footage of, and seeing them sit there and draw. It's hypnotic in terms of seeing that in action. Yes, I mean, for me, the greatest experiences I had was meeting some of those people, seeing some of their works in the person, going down Artist Alley and meeting people as you move through those areas, and it's a great place to go to when, as an artist, especially from my perspective, because I can't speak to others, but when I go in there, it's for me, you feel like you're in tune with what those other creators are doing in terms of your intention in life. Like you just want to produce great things with a great quality, and they're all on the same aligned page together, the same frequency. That makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And every time I go to a convention, I go to Artist Alley or I meet some of the comic book creators that are there at the show, respectively. I gotta tell you, man, Artist Alley. I wish I had a duffel bag full of cash because there are so many prints that you see at these shows, whether they're here in the U.S. of A. or they're in Australia, wherever you are in the world, respectively. There's some really, and I mean really talented individuals that I've spoken to, and I've talked to them, and I've said to them, I don't know how you everyone has a process, right? Everyone hones their skills, but I said to them, I don't know how you do this, but quite frankly, it's amazing what you do. And I just want to say you're doing a great job. Keep it up. And they love hearing that. They love hearing it. And every time I walk by somebody's booth, and even though I tell them, hey, I'm sorry, I can't, buy one of your prints because my bank account has been wiped out, but I'm going to take one of these cards. I'm going to hold on to it because then I know when to go back and look at this work that I saw when I was at that show at that time, or I can just pick it out whenever. Yeah. And then I would say to them, I like what you're doing. If we can get you on the show, I want to promote what you're doing, because what I love what you're doing, and I want to support it any way that I can. And I think that is another thing. Networking and supporting indie supports indie is something I say a lot on these shows, and that's something I think should be tattooed in any geek / nerd's brain. When you go to a convention, indie supports indie. If you support them, they're going to support you. You get their business card. That means, like, hey, they may not have been able to buy this piece of art or this tumbler or whatever it is that they have at their booth, but they're going to remember me because they took my card. It's not like they just whisked by and didn't give me the time of day. No, they took time to talk. And I like talking. I like meeting.
The greatest gift. The greatest gift you can do to any artist is to share. Just share it out there.
Post.
You know, like help them get the word out. You know, and I think that's because, I mean, look, trying to figure out the algorithms on everything is insane. I can't. I'm not that smart. But when you are helping people, I mean, you're by sharing that work out, or even putting that, you know, a word of praise out about that work, or drawing a little bit of a spotlight that way. I mean, that helps more than anything.
For sure. And I look forward to having more independent content creators or artists on this show and other shows. So you never know. And anything is possible as long as you work together as a team. You can do much. With that being said, I want to let you know that this episode of And I Quote, and every episode of And I Quote, is powered by our good friends over there at Poddex. Now, Poddex are unique interview questions and episode starting prompts in the palm of your very own hand. So whether you are a new podcaster or an existing broadcaster looking to grow your audience or get more engagement, you're going to want to check out our friends over there at poddex.com. Use the promo code Ryan10, that's RYAN10, for 10% off your first order. Don't miss out on that opportunity. Can you dig it? With that being said, Will, who was the best boss you ever had, and what made them the best?
The best boss?
Yeah, it could be anybody.
Wow. Look, I think the best bosses I've had are ones that have the respect to see what you can do and to give you the freedom to do it. I mean, and I'm a school teacher as well, and that includes those bosses. I mean, some of the best clients, the best bosses I've had are the ones that respect your journey and what you're doing. They respect where you're at, and they give you creative freedom to do those things, you know. And you know, I've always been fortunate enough to have, you know, both in education and my life, I mean, bosses that were able to step back and just say, look, do what you need to do. That's why you're here. And I've always been on the one side. I don't care how much benefit they reap out of that in terms of their own needs, their own boxes they've got to tick. Because for me, it's just about the journey of what I'm actually producing. So, yeah, I think that I mean, it's pretty rare. I mean, I think I would have been younger when I'd had bosses that perhaps weren't as pleasurable, but that was because perhaps they didn't understand the human in the equation and the value of what those workers look like. And sure enough, you come across that as an adult sometimes too. But I like to lean on the history that I've had with people that inspire me in terms of how they treat each other. And how they honor the journey of the creator. And so, yeah, I think that's, I mean, that kind of answers it really. I mean, it's really just how you treat each other anyway, whether you know, are able to gain out of that relationship or not, and reciprocating that. But the best bosses I've had are ones that honor the process, honor the human first, and respect the journey.
You know, I'll tell you what, this has been every episode of And I Quote has been a joy to be a part of, whoever I'm speaking with on the other side of the stage here, respectively. But man, if you're running for public office tomorrow, I'm going to be voting for you. Because my gosh, your answers are just, no, I'm just kidding. But their answers are really good. That's all I'm going to say about that. But with that being said, Poddex wants to know, if you were going on what is known as a long road trip, what are the 3 must-haves you couldn't leave without? And these could be any items.
Right. As in personal items, or yeah, okay. So it would have to be obviously a sketchbook. It would have to be. I have a little travel kit of gouache. I would take that with me as well, and probably something I can listen to, like, you know, because I listen to a lot of sort of content of media when I'm painting or drawing. So That would be my top 3. Was it 3?
Yeah, it was 3 items.
Yeah, that would be my top 3. Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. Who is the best female role model in your life?
Wow, probably my wife, I would say. And I say that she's not in the room. I say there's no gun, but I would say that she inspires me. I mean, I'm amazed at how she juggles things and keeps evolving herself as a person. I mean, she's a graphic designer, and she's constantly moving and shifting and changing and improving, but still has time for every single person in the room. It's just this incredible balance of what she does, and an incredible artist in her own right. I mean, I look at her and I think, I don't know how you did that. I don't know where that came from. I don't know how you had time for that, and still have time for me. I think that's, for me, that's, I watch that a lot and I honor that. I think that's, she's great with our children, and still manages to sit down and read and paint and do all those things. She does screen printing as well. She's been doing that for a few years, and she'll teach herself how to do things. I mean, she's autodidactic in that way. She'll do her own learning. So incredible.
Gee willikers, talk about the Maid of Steel, Supergirl. We got Superwoman here on the
Yes.
on the set. Well, not physically here on the set because she's not in this room. But what I'm saying is, that's awesome. That's super. The House of L is very strong.
Correct.
It's just, gosh, man, you really do, man. You got an artistic family going on there, man. My gosh.
Yeah, there's no escape here.
Man, I do. Boy,
you can't help but be exposed.
Does she have favorite? Is she into some of the geek properties that you're into?
No.
Like, does she like Spider-Man or the X-Men or stuff like that, or is that not really her thing?
Not really. I mean, she'll
put up with it.
Yeah, she'll sometimes sit and watch it, but she's just not her drive. I mean, she'll go, "Oh, yeah, that's cool.
It's not her
looks
cup of
pretty." Like, she likes it when I'm painting some of the portraits I've been doing. She appreciates that.
Huh.
But she'll watch me watching Star Wars and go, "I don't get it. I don't get why you've watched this 8 million times and why you need to see it again."
Because it's awesome. That's why.
And I said, "I'd like to teach it to you, but it's inborn. I can't convince you, So she'd rather go watch something else, but that's okay. That's her thing. Man. And I'll just watch it, The same as some of my favorite horror movies. I'll watch something, on my playlist lots of times, And for me, they're my engine primers. They get the priming pump going, and I'll go, right, now I'm in the mood. I know exactly what I'm doing. And sometimes my playlist will reflect what I'm actually painting or drawing at the time, because it just sets that mood with me. So if I'm doing a Star Wars, I'm not going to have John Carpenter's The Thing playing in the background, So it's got to have something that's in alignment with what I'm doing.
I mean, look, people have their likes and their dislikes. We've known this for years. Opposites attract. We've seen it happen. It happens. But for me personally, I would find it difficult to be with somebody who's not into at least one geek property that I'm into, or maybe something that's a geek property that maybe I'm not into, but I'm willing to learn. I mean, let's say hypothetically, I meet someone who's into Trek, but I grew up on the Wars, which is, by the way, that's true. I grew up on the Wars, not the Trek. But I am a Trekkie now. I'm starting to become a Trekkie a bit. But if she tells me, "Oh, I'm into this property and I never heard of it," I'm thinking, okay, I'm not familiar with this. Can you explain it to me, please?
Yeah.
And then if she gives me the cliff notes or whatever, and I start to dig it, I'm like, okay, we can work with this. You don't like Star Wars, but I never heard of this property over here, but I'm willing to, if we get, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you wondering what I'm getting at, the point is, relationships are about compromise. So if you could please be into at least one geek property, that would be great. Hey, Will and the missus, that's their thing. I'm going to let them take care of that on their own. That's not my problem.
It's all good.
Yeah, Mrs. Pleydon, I wish you the best, but try to watch Star Wars. I think you might enjoy it.
Oh, look, she's been to every one of the films.
Oh, she's seen every one.
Yeah, she'll watch them and she'll go, that was cool. I think she likes likes the wisdom of Yoda. I mean,
do or do
speaks to
not.
what,
There is no try. Yeah.
yeah, and that speaks to her, I suppose, her journey of spiritualism too. And I think that's for her. She loves that stuff, the hero's journey part of it.
Yes, Joseph Campbell.
Yeah, loves all of that stuff. So I think that draws her in the Jedi sort of wisdom stuff. Whereas, sometimes I just like the aliens in the cantina.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, watch your step. This place could be a little rough.
Yes.
I'm ready for anything. Come along, R2. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm getting a little off the beaten path here, but what word, Poddex wants to know, I should say, what words do you always struggle to spell correctly?
Oh, friend.
Really?
I have to recorrect all the time. I don't know why. I just write it out, and that's the one I have to remember. Fry and ends. What's the other one that always trips me up? Gouache. When I'm writing out the word gouache, I always forget the A. I've got to go back in there and get it done. But it's it's a problem. It's very unforgiving in the classroom when you're writing on the whiteboard. They don't give you much room to breathe if you make a mistake.
Yeah, those students of yours are going to point out, you spelled that wrong, sir.
Yeah, they're very quick. Yeah, that's wrong. Mr. Pleydon.
Yeah, this is wrong. No, it's basically they're pulling a Han Solo. No, this one goes here, that one goes there, right? Anyway,
Exactly.
I think Will and I are just going to sit down one day and do a a Star Wars quote along. I don't know.
That's right. Yeah,
you and I could probably do it, honestly.
What would be your favorite Star Wars quote, Ryan?
Of all of them? Oh
yeah.
My gosh. Yeah. All right. Here's the one I use probably more so than most. I do like "May the Force be with you" or "The Force be with you always," because that's the encouraging thought that you want to give people when they're going through struggles and all that stuff. And I try to pass that on to them if I can, whether they've seen the property or not. But I have a T-shirt that has these words on it, and I'll share this with you in the backstage area when we're done.
Yeah.
We're fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you?
That's a great one.
I'm always dropping the Han Solo line.
The awkwardness of Han.
Yeah. Do you drop that one at any point? Have you said that one to your students? Like,
I haven't,
fine.
but
How are
should.
you?
Yeah. I should. Absolutely.
You should start using that in the classroom because there's no curse words in it. So
no, I do have a Qui-Gon quote in my classroom where he says, "Your focus determines your reality." I have that on my wall in my classroom. So that's a good one. It's one of my favorites.
I have a 11x14 print of Qui-Gon on my wall.
Nice.
I love Qui-Gon. He's an underrated character. He's honestly, I started reading the Star Wars novels, and the first one I read was Master and Apprentice by Claudia Gray, which is about the relationship between Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan before the prequels. And it's a great book. It's written by Claudia Gray. You can find it in paperback, hardcover, or what's the other format? Ebook. You can find it on Amazon, wherever you get your books. Read that book, because if you want more Qui-Gon that you didn't get, because let's face it, the guy gets like 10 minutes of screen time. He gets killed off at the end. That was wrong, by the way. You shouldn't have killed him, even though it's part of the story. And then someone brought up a good point. Like if Qui-Gon didn't die, then like Anakin wouldn't have trained with Obi-Wan. He would have been under the tutelage of and then he probably wouldn't have become Darth Vader and all this stuff. Like I get that, but Liam Neeson the Jedi is so good.
He's good.
I don't know. But if you want more Qui-Gon in your life, read the book Master and Apprentice, written by Claudia Gray.
Perfect.
You might want to write that one down. But anyway, that's the line I use from Star Wars. But where was I going with that? I don't even know. What were we talking about? Yeah, Qui-Gon. I have a Qui-Gon shirt coming in pretty soon. Yeah, so I'll share that with you too. Like I said, backstage.
Excellent.
Yeah, Poddex wants to know, on this great episode of And I Quote, with our guest, Will Pleydon, if you're just joining us wondering, why are they talking about War in the Stars? Well, it's because Will and I just happen to be fans of a certain property that's only been around for, 45 plus years. So if you have any questions for Will Pleydon, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat. Whether you are joining this live or on the replay, we thank you for being with us. And don't forget to like and share this episode with all of your closest friends, even if they're not a Star Wars fan. We don't mind. It's okay. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you? So Poddex wants to know, Will, if you were musically inclined, who would you want to have a private jam session with? And this could be someone dead or alive.
Oh, probably Dave Matthews. I like Dave Matthews. I just find his music just slightly different to what is mainstream, and I like that about him. You know, I mean, music. I mean, if I could go back in time, it'd be, you know, the Artie Shaws and the Glenn Millers. But yeah, probably now Dave Matthews, I think.
All right. I've heard some of their music. It's.
I've never been asked that before. That's unusual. But
No. It's fine. Like Dave Matthews Band is fine. I'm just not the biggest fan. But then again,
no,
that's
it'd
okay.
have to be acoustic. It'd have to be acoustic. You know, I like the acoustic sets. You know.
Okay. I haven't heard Dave Matthews' music in a while. I should probably go back and revisit that at some point. I apologize. But with that being said, Poddex wants to know, what do you consider yourself an expert at other than Star Wars? I'm just kidding.
An expert at
could be anything.
Trying to improve myself.
Okay, that's a unique answer.
Because I don't think I would say that I'm at a mastery level with any of it, really. Because the game's changing consistently. So I might get to a certain point where I've achieved something at a high level there, but then it'll be different the following day because I've changed, and because I've evolved, and because I've progressed. So in living in a universal progressive state, we are always changing. So in terms of my knowledge around that stuff, it's only as good as my last work, because then the next work's different again, because I've evolved myself. I might have consumed more knowledge, more media, and practiced my mediums. So I'm constantly moving that way. So I would say the only expertise or perfection I may have achieved would be the mindset that I'm open to all of it, and not connected to the last part that's past me. So I'm constantly moving forward. Does that answer your question?
The force is strong with this one. Yes, it does. And what also answers the question is that your very unique answers to every question we've thrown at you, but I'm loving it. And the other thing we love is that we hope you have enjoyed this episode of And I Quote. Will Pleydon, thank you so much for being here. This has been a treasure, an amazing few moments here, and we appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy schedule of talking with us here at And I Quote. Will, where can the good people of the interwebs follow you on social media to keep up to date with everything you got going on? What's going on?
So I have a unique issue where I have the same name as my father, so we both got Will Pleydon. So you can find me anywhere. You type in Art of Will Pleydon, the Art of Will Pleydon, and that's on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and I have an Etsy shop named the same. So you can find me in all of those areas. We've just started a new group called the Artists of the Universe, where artists or people that just love art can come along to that group on Facebook and follow along with our creations and what we do, behind the scenes stuff and tutorials on how to do things as well. So you can draw along with us, you can just watch, you can do all of those things. So that's the Artists of the Universe on Facebook, or the Art of Will Pleydon, or Art of Will Pleydon on those other platforms. There you go.
Yeah. Well, that is just incredible. Thank you so much for being here, Will. I will talk to you again
thank you.
In just a moment. So my name is Ryan of Nerd Culture. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at RyanRPM5. Follow us on all forms of social media. Links are located within the description below. Also, if you want to follow the great stuff that Will Pleydon is doing, the links are located in the description of this episode. So be sure to check out everything that he's doing, because those pieces of artwork that we showed earlier, whew, baby. Such good stuff. They should be hanging on your walls, respectively, of course. With that being said, once we reach 1,000 subscribers, we're going to throw a great big live stream celebration that's going to include returning guests, surprise guests, and some special giveaways for you, our incredible fans and subscribers. And hey, maybe Will Pleydon will join us. Maybe he'll draw something for you. I don't know. We'll have to get in. We'll have to talk to him. We'll have to talk to his people, have our people call his people. We'll have to get in on that. That'd be interesting, because Will's an incredible person. He's an incredible artist, and we would love to have him, as well as many other people we've had on here in the past, on again. I think that'd be a great time. Do you? Well, as long as you tell your friends about us, and they tell their friends, and so on, and so on, and so on. You know how these things go. And once we hit 1,000, we're going to throw a great big celebration, but we can only do it with your help. So check us out. A lot of great things coming your way very soon. Also, Ahsoka's Weekly Mission, where we do spoiler-heavy discussions of Ahsoka. Yeah, Ahsoka lives, guys. She's not dead. She's got a big battle on her hands. New series that's lighting up the internet and the streaming service known as Disney Plus. Those are on Wednesdays, 8 p.m. EST, here on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, as well as Twitter, which is now being called X. I guess it's because they want to be an X-Men or something. Maybe Marvel told them to do that. I don't know. But we're all over the social media platforms, so check us out there. Like, comment, share, subscribe, ring that bell so you get notified of when our videos go live and they go up. And in the meantime, stay healthy, stay strong, stay safe. Remember, indie supports indie, and life is better when reading. Take a look.
Famous Faces and Funnies in Melbourne, Florida is leading the way in pop culture fun. From comic books and graphic novels to Funko Pops and collector's items, Famous Faces and Funnies has it all. Rick Shea and the professional team at Famous Faces and Funnies are friendly and knowledgeable. Whether you're looking for toys, props, collector treasures, or a new comic book, Famous Faces and Funnies is your one-stop shop. To find Famous Faces and Funnies on Facebook and Twitter, just type at FFF Comics.
Sweet dreams deep placed on me inside my mind. Chance my truth, twist the past, my memories are fading fast. Am I still missed? Who do you want me to be? Am I still missed?
In the summer of 1953, private investigator Will Lucky Marks was working as the in-house private eye for Arcane Pacific Pictures. Trapped inside the studio with the killer, Lucky must find the killer before time runs out. Lot 28. Own it today. Available iTunes and Amazon.com.
Choose high-flying action. Choose death-defying escapes. Choose spine-tingling thrills. Choose nail-biting intrigue. Now's your chance to choose the adventure. The Captain Hawkland Adventures. Available on Amazon.com.
Good morning! Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.